The ode has its origin in the fertile land of ancient Greek. In Greek plays, the ode was used by a chorus. It was in fact a type of song, which was sung with the accompaniment of music, or at least with a lyre. The word ode has actually been taken from a Greek word oid, which means a song. Sir Edmund Goose defines it as any strain of enthusiastic and exalted lyrical verse, directed to a fixed purpose, and dealing progressively with one dignified theme. It is a lyrical poem with elegant style, exalted theme, and ostentatious language. It is usually addressed to some person or thing. Webster's dictionary explains it as, in modern use, a lyric poem, rhymed or unrhymed, typically addressed to some person or thing and usually characterized by lofty feeling, elaborate form, and dignified style. There are many characteristics of ode, which differentiate it from other forms of poetry. Let's discuss these characteristics in detail. The first important feature of an ode is that it is addressed to someone or something. The author addresses a person or thing in his ode. It is usually an indispensable quality of an ode. Whenever we go through an ode, we feel that the poet is having conversation with somebody or maybe something. By way of example, in Ode to Nightingale, John Keats is addressing the nightingale. In Ode on a Grecian Urn, the poet is speaking to a Grecian urn. Hence, this unique quality distinguishes it from other types of lyrical poetry. Another fundamental characteristic of an ode is its solemn and serious tone. Each and every ode is extremely serious in its tone. There is absolutely no room for humor or petty and frivolous things. It is highly serious and solemn in its tone. Look at the odes of John Keats. Every ode of John Keats is an epitome of solemnity in this regard. It does not have any element of frivolity. Sublime style is another characteristic of ode. Every ode possesses an exceptionally sublime and grand style. No ode, in the history of English poetry, could possibly be traced out, which is not elevated in its style. Every single poet endeavors hard to compose his ode in extra elevated style. Almost all odes of John Keats are best examples in this particular respect. Another important feature of an ode is the fact that its theme is highly elevated. Its theme is definitely exalted, sublime and elevated. Its theme bears wide-ranging significance. It may not be limited simply to the personality of the poet, rather, it's as universal. Catharsis of emotions is yet another essential characteristic of an ode. The poet wishes to give vent to his emotions through his plight of imagination in his ode. He really wants to leave the real world and take shelter in the world of his imagination. Thus, catharsis of emotion is an exclusive feature of an ode. Uniform metrical scheme is a salient feature of an ode. Poets really need to follow a consistent metrical scheme. Stanza in the ode has a hard and fast rhyme scheme, which the poet pursues from start to the end of the ode. It must be kept in mind that the irregular odes don't follow these rules. There are three kinds of ode: Pindaric ode, Horatian ode and irregular ode. Let's discuss them one by one. The first one is Pindaric ode. Pindar, who was the greatest lyric poet of the Greece, has been considered to be the father of the Pindaric or choric ode. Pindaric odes are also called the choric ode, for the reason that, in Greek plays, the chorus had to speak out the words of the ode with the accompaniment of music. It has a fixed stanza structure. However, the number of stanzas may vary. It is broken down into three parts: strophe, antistrophe and deep ode. The very first stanza of the Pindaric ode is recognized as the strophe, wherein the chorus chanted the stanza and moved in one direction. The second stanza in the Pindaric ode is known as antistrophe, whereby the chorus spoke out it and proceeded in the opposite direction of the strophe. During epode, the chorus remained stationary. Cowley was the first poet who followed the conventions of Pindaric Ode and wrote many odes. However, he didn't have an understanding of the true nature of Pindaric Ode, and deviated slightly from it. He didn't adhere to the rhythmical and metrical pattern of the Pindaric Ode, rather, he introduced irregular stanzas in his odes. Though the Pindaric Ode couldn't blossom in England, yet it paved the way for the coming poets to try their hands on irregular and Horatian odes. Numerous poets composed odes and took it to the pinnacle of glory. William Collins's Ode to Fear is an excellent example in this regard. The Horatian Ode has been named after the Latin poet, Horace, who wrote in the manner of Pindaric Ode. It is pertinent to mention here that the Horace didn't follow the traditions of Pindaric Ode as laid by Pindar. He made several modifications in the structure of the ode and gave it his own personal touches. The Horatian Ode comprises of many stanzas with regular metrical structure. An essential characteristic of Horatian Ode is that it has not been split up into triads like Pindaric Ode. The poet's main purpose is to give vent to his feelings in Horatian Ode, unlike the Pindaric Ode, wherein an element of objectivity runs through the whole structure of ode. John Keats is a leading poet, who is famous for his stunning and fabulous odes. Look at the stanza taken from Ode to a Nightingale. Britannica Encyclopedia defines irregular ode as, irregular ode, a rhymed ode that employs neither the three-part form of the Pindaric Ode nor the 2 or 4-line stanza that typifies the Horatian Ode. It is also characterized by irregularity of verse and stanzaic structure and by lack of correspondence between parts called pseudo-Pindaric Ode or Cowleyan Ode. Cowley is regarded as the originator of this kind of ode. Irregular ode has all the important features of the Pindaric Ode, but it avoids the division of ode into triads or groups. Each stanza of irregular ode is different from the next stanza in its length, pattern and rhyme scheme. Different kinds of meters are utilized in each stanza. That is why it is considered as the most flexible and easier one kind of ode. Look at the stanzas taken from Wordsworth's Ode on the Intimations of Immortality. Here you can see the difference between irregular ode and Pindaric Ode. Thanks for watching. For more information, please visit my blog, Rafiq23.